How do I start a story about the largest battle of the Great War? The battle that would define the war itself. Simple. Maybe a story from the front, maybe a flashback. But instead, let's take you on a story away from the mud filled, gas ridden, rat infected place that was the First World War. Let's look at Verdun in the 800s. The name Verdun means strong fort, a safe and secure place, though nothing to compare to Paris or Orleans. But today, the city is important. On the 10th of August, 843, men met to end the future of their grandfather's legacy. Francia was, by the Pope's own definition, the Roman Empire, even when Constantinople was still in its prime to some extent. But this city, maybe not the cause, but the place that would see the signing of the Treaty of Verdun. This treaty effectively ended a united Western Empire, but broke the idea of being Frankish. Before Rome, small areas of people had little to no national identity except in a Gaelic culture. But Rome kicked Gaul to the British Isles, and the area was Roman. Germany did not fall to this fate of becoming one identity, and were soon seen as a different culture. That all changed as the Franks took over the area of modern France and Germany, which is fine until they split instead of falling. This treaty set up the Holy Roman Empire and France, or East and West Francia. Central Francia also was set up, but with the terms of the treaty giving it no natural boundaries to the new state, because of this, it was conquered. But no one knew who the people in this region were, the new French coming from the Franks or the Germans. This would spawn hatred of each other, which was not helped by Napoleon. Eventually, the spiral started, and Verdun returned to Verdun. The First World War began with multiple problems, but the starting gun to this war was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, who was the heir to the throne of the Austrian Hungarian Empire. This caused the July Crisis, where a string of alliances began to burn. This led to the German Empire invading France with the Schlieffen Plan, a plan to defeat the allies of the Russian Bear and the French Marine. The plan was halted, however, at the First Battle of the Marne, where the Germans were stopped by the last minute decision to bring French forces to the front in taxis, resulting in the Germans' defeat. The loss at the Marne caused a stalemate at the front, with neither side not able to push ahead and continue their plans to win a quick war. What followed was the so called Race to the Sea, where both sides attempted to outflank each other in hopes of surrounding the enemy. This would be unsuccessful for both sides, leading to a stalemate. The next year would not be better, seeing a failed counterattacks by both sides. The war of motion on the Western Front went quiet. By the end of 1914, the leaders of the German forces was led by Erich von Falkenhayn, who began his military career with the Germany's gambles in China. The Kaiser had often found the soldier fascinating and helped him rise the ranks to the point of controlling the entire army in September of 1914. After the failure of Moltke the Younger, Germany began looking across the front, looking for the perfect place to break through. One place often considered by lower German officers was Verdun. Verdun controlled one of the largest and least defended fort systems in France, only rivaled by Paris itself. If you would like to learn more about the French and German armies, a video, which is an offshoot of this script, is in the link in the description and or the card above. The basic overview is that the French fort system was there to distract and slow the Germans only for a small time before falling to the Germans. As such, the forts remained undefended as the crisis of the Belgian border continued. The French-German border up to that time saw little to no action. A small portion was taken by Germans, and even parts of Germany near the Swiss border were taken over by the French. The area seemed secure only to the French. The Germans saw an easy way to break the line and march on Paris. Falkenhayn himself, however, distrusted the plan, favoring their defensive idea, making sure to survive instead of all out victory. So it might seem strange why the battle that would define the future of the war happened. Falkenhayn would say after the war that a breakthrough was not the goal, but instead a war of attrition, to bleed the French white. The evidence was in the Christmas Memorandum, a detailed letter explaining to the Kaiser how they would win the war. It explained how the French would fight to the death to save the historic town dating back to Caesar's war in Gaul. This would be a great way to figure out why Falkenhayn wanted to take Verdun, if it was not fake. The Christmas Memorandum has not been proved fake, but it has not been proved real. Kaiser Wilhelm never admitted that he received it, nor do we have the original copy. Some historians have officially deemed it as false, or simply to restore the image of Falkenhayn. If it is false, Falkenhayn probably agreed from peer pressure or desperation. Either way, after 1915, Germany was ready to attack Verdun. The German Fifth Army was chosen for the task, led by Crown Prince Wilhelm, a smart and kind individual. The French, however, were digging their own grave. Joffre, a huge leader in France, stripped troops and artillery for failed campaigns in other places on the front. Meanwhile, the Germans began assembling their forces. The Germans always had Krupp artillery, and two huge naval guns also helped. The Germans gathered 542 heavy cannons, 306 field pieces, 152 mine mortars, and 220 other cannons, the very accurate two naval guns, and a huge and destructive 13 big Bursas. 183 artillery pieces, along with the German Fifth Army, were stored in underground barracks only a mile away from the front. The forces were originally 140,000. Germany also gathered its air power to spy on French. Meanwhile, the rail lines brought in more and more soldiers and supplies. Joffre continued to strip the fort surrounding Verdun for other campaigns. Frederick Kerr began to protest, seeing his sector fall into a state of disarray, seeing little of his men return from campaigns. Joffre did not listen, seeing Verdun as unimportant, and replying that the Germans knew nothing of the disarmament, which, with the large German air power in the area, was obvious. Verdun only had about 8,000 men left to fend off the Germans. Herr began to talk to other prominent French generals such as Pétain, who led troops in Champagne, and Joseph Galilee, who was the military governor of Paris. Joffre, though, was overall more powerful, being popular in Entente circles. The area was also already fought over, seeing about 4 separate battles, including the Marne. Though Herr and now Alidi Driant both pushed to see Verdun regain its glory. The French High Command, however, simply danced around the issue. Meanwhile, Driant and Herr began fortifighting Verdun as little clues slipped from the Germans, such as messages from the Crown Prince and soldiers from Germany confessing the entire plan. Joffre eventually caved in, though still insisted he was correct. France stopped taking troops from the Verdun sector and sent an extra corps to support Verdun. Germany was unable to see the new French troops due to French winter. For over 2 weeks, the Germans had little to no knowledge of the French military movements, though all good things must come to an end, as a short break in weather during January 17th allowed both sides to see the full force of their enemy. The French learned little, seeing nothing but dirt. However, German trenches were there, but invisible to the French. The French did see locations disappear, most likely to disarm the French artillery by removing ways to range. February would be the month that the battle began. The first signs were the German artillery ranging their own weapons. As more defecting soldiers turned up on French lines, more began speaking of how soldiers could not leave and how things were picking up in the German camp. Joffre would arrive with news: 2 new divisions. The problem was timing. The divisions were supposed to arrive February 12th, the same day the Germans were to attack. At the last moment, however, a French blizzard hits the Verdun sector, allowing the 2 divisions to come in at the last second. Though this is no field day for either side, hallowing snow brushes over the trenches as the average soldier shivers. France would fight another day. For the soldiers, this is sheer pain. By the 20th, the blizzard had left, and the German commanders planned to attack on the 21st. 7:15 February 1916. The shells from Germany begin their rain as Operation Judgment began. The German plan would implement an untested plan. The basic idea was to destroy the majority of the French forces with an intense artillery bombardment. German squads would then sweep the area of any further resistance. Then the Germans would push through with 6 corpses. It was a good plan on paper and was a part of a bigger plan by the Germans. Though we cannot confirm the intentions of Verdun, the Germans did wish for a counterattack somewhere else on the front. This would become the Somme. A 10-hour barrage with 1 2 million shells put the French into, dare I say it,